Hey guys, welcome to Squarebox Games. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you're new, welcome for the first time. If you don't know about us, Squarebox Games, we're a channel that tries to focus on like how to play different kinds of board games, critiques, comments, gameplay, that kind of stuff. So today we're going to be actually talking about Star Wars Legion. I've got a fun video I think for you guys. Obviously, if you read the title, you can see, but this is my idea. If the First Order actually came to Legion as a faction, what would that look like? What kind of units would we get? And I know in the community there's a love-hate on if the First Order and Resistance should or should not be in this game. A lot of people that critique it say, hey, the First Order and the Resistance are they're going to end up being the same as the Empire and the Rebels. But I think there's a lot of cool characters in the sequel trilogy. Despite the movie's flaws, there's some cool characters, and more characters in a game that I love to play, I'm not going to say no to. So I'm just going to kind of theorize today. We're going to go kind of by unit type here and talk about what potential units we could see, kind of what they would look like. Now, I didn't make it like a unit card and plan out every little keyword and all the stats for every single unit, but just kind of we'll talk about kind of a basic idea of how each character would play. So obviously we're going to start with the commanders. So the First Order, Hux, right, from the whole sequel trilogy. Hux, he's a great character. He's pretty intense, obviously one of the leaders of the First Order. I definitely see him being more of a character that would be more of a support type role, kind of like a Leia, where he would kind of stand back, maybe not as aggressive, but he would kind of support the troops, give them tokens, that kind of stuff. But Hux would definitely be one of the commanders. He would go that commander slot. Another one that I thought would be great, that makes a lot of sense, would be Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. So this is not Episode 7 Kylo Ren. This is later on, basically at the end of 8 and all of Episode 9, where he is taken back over. He's got the mask back on with like the red glue or whatever he does. He is in charge of the First Order. So just kind of like we have an operative in Commander Vader and an operative Commander Luke, we would see a Commander Kylo Ren, and then spoiler alert, an operative. But yeah, that Supreme Leader version of him I think would be great. Obviously, Force powers, I think he would be a very like aggressive, get in there with his lightsaber and slice away. And Adam Driver does a great job with that character. I love the character of Kylo Ren. I would love to see him on the Legion battlefield. I'll even proxy him for Darth Vader, just to have his miniature on there. Let's see, another commander, a third commander, Supreme Leader Snoke, obviously. He's the leader at the beginning of the trilogy, kind of halfway through. I could see he would be more probably similar to Palpatine, to where he's another supporting type commander, stronger and more expensive, I'm sure, than Hux would be. Hux would be like the cheaper option. He would be like Palpatine, where he'd be pretty expensive. Obviously, he's got force powers and stuff like that. Probably slow moving. But yeah, I would love to see Snoke. He'd be an extra tall figure and everything like that too. So I think he would be pretty cool. Obviously, you would get a generic First Order officer, just like every faction has, like a cheaper version of Hux, basically, where, hey, you got to fill someone in that role. You want to focus more points on your operatives and your core units and stuff like that. Just throw a generic First Order officer in there. That's an easy thing right there. And then the last one, I debated whether to put this one on the list or not, but that would be Palpatine, the Reborn, Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine with half of his finger bones and stuff like that, maybe tied to the tubes or whatever. But obviously he is Palpatine. He's a popular character. Why would you not have him on there? But that would give us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different commanders right there. You would definitely have to make that Palpatine, the Final Order Palpatine, be different than Emperor Palpatine, in the Empire list. But I think you can make enough tweaks to make them a little bit different command cards or something like that. But we also see people like Boba Fett, that's a mercenary that can be in multiple factions. So you could have Palpatine being both. It could be the same card, but he's just applicable in the First Order and the Empire. But let's move on to operatives. I think operatives are probably my favorite unit type in the game. I think they get the coolest characters. But the first one, we've already kind of touched on him, but Kylo Ren. This would be like the Episode 7 Kylo Ren with the helmet and everything, not broken. Or, I mean, we could have an alternate sculpt without the mask on, too. But it would be probably a bit cheaper than the Commander, the Supreme Leader, Kylo Ren. I could see him having, like the Force Freeze that he does with like the laser bolts and stuff like that. Probably deflect. He's got his lightsaber. Obviously, it would be more aggressive melee type character with force powers, comparable to like maybe not as many dodge tokens as like an Ahsoka, but someone on that level. Operative Luke, one of those kind of thing. Obviously Force user Jedi. But yeah, then also Captain Phasma would obviously be a gimme. Cool looking unit, Silver Stormtrooper. She's great. I could see her maybe having like a special squad of elite Stormtroopers that she bolsters, kind of like Sabine in The Mandalorian. She could have, kind of paired together with one of those. I can't talk right. But yeah, Captain Phasma would obviously make the most sense. Her and Kylo Ren are probably the two most well-known, on-the-ground fighters when it comes to the First Order. Then a couple other deep cuts. Now, we don't have as much source material for the First Order and like the Resistance as we do for every other faction in Star Wars Legion. So I had to look at some of the other shows and stuff and books that I haven't even partaken in, but you've got Captain Cardinal. Now, he is a red stormtrooper, if I remember right. And I think he's either in the Resistance TV show or he's in like some of the Phasma. I think he's in the Phasma book is where he comes from. But he kind of like operates under Phasma and kind of with Phasma. But he could be, another named character operative that could be there. Obviously, he's a stormtrooper. We don't know a ton about him. And then the last one would be Pyre from the Resistance TV show. Super cool looking character. Kind of a gold and black stormtrooper armor. Phasma's got the silver. Pyre's got the gold. So that would be another operative that we could have. So that gives us 4 options. I feel like that's enough to like start a faction with 5 commanders, 4 operatives. I think there's enough, even though the core units I think are where you're going to start seeing. I think they're pretty much carbon copies of the Galactic Empire, but I think your commanders and your operatives give you enough variation to justify it being its own separate faction. But let's move on to the core units. Obviously, you're going to have the First Order Stormtroopers. Like, that's the basic thing. Stormtroopers in the Galactic Empire, Stormtroopers in the First Order. They look different. Serve a similar role. Man, I can't talk today. Now, I thought about making some of these other units separate, like Flame Troopers and like the Riot Troopers that you get. They're kind of like the First Order Executioners that are in The Last Jedi. I think they would probably make good upgrades on someone like the First Order Stormtrooper. So you'd have, just like you do with some of the other ones, you'd have your base guys with like E11s or whatever they are, and then you could have a heavy gunner and the sniper Stormtrooper, that kind of stuff. So First Order Stormtrooper, obviously choice for a core unit for the First Order. And then the second one we have under the core units are the First Order Snowtroopers. Imagine that, just like you have in the Galactic Empire, you've got the First Order Snowtroopers as well. And I would say we could probably make them pretty similar to the Galactic Empire Snowtroopers. Add some Flame Trooper heavies on there. They would be a slower, more close-range version of Stormtroopers, basically. And then, so those are the first 2. And then another one, I debated whether to put these guys in the Specialist slot or Core set, but with some of the other units I thought about, I think they made more sense in the core unit field is the Sith troopers. So these are the red stormtroopers that we get in the Rise of Skywalker on Exegol. They could be, I don't know, I'm imagining them to be like a more expensive, more elite version of regular stormtroopers. Kind of like you've got your rebel troopers and you've got your, why can I not think? Man, I'm just drawing a blank today. But the Hoth troopers, they're a little beefier, a little more expensive. The veterans, a little more expensive, similar, but just a little bit stronger, but at a higher point cost. I think the Sith troopers would probably kind of fit that niche or that section of the army right there. And then the last one I thought of for core units. So this will give you 4 separate core units just in the First Order. Would be First Order sympathizers. So we know Finn mentions those, I think, at one point, asking around if there's any First Order sympathizers. I'm imagining these to be an even cheaper version of the Stormtroopers. I think they would represent, just non-conscripted citizens of the galaxy that support the First Order's cause. So they'd be in like civilian clothing, maybe with, some pistols instead of big blasters or whatever. They could be lightly armored or have no armor, white defense dye versus those red defense dye that most, armored troopers get. But I think that could give you some variation there and kind of make it a little bit different than the Empire's, having those sympathizers that almost seem like a rebel type trooper that you can kind of throw in there. So you've got your, storms, your close range snows, and then your elite Sith troopers, and then your cheaper First Order sympathizers. So that's kind of what I came up with the core set. So moving on to specialists, which I think is probably the second funnest unit type. I think your operatives, have the most fun because you get like the good named characters there. But the specialists are kind of like the generic versions of the operatives, in my opinion. But I started with, and this is a tricky one. I don't know exactly how this would be done, but the Knights of Ren. Obviously, Kylo Ren is the leader of the Knights of Ren that's mentioned in the sequel trilogy, and then we finally really get to see them in Rise of Skywalker. We don't really see them do anything except stand there menacingly and then fight for like a minute against a redeemed Kylo Ren in the form of Ben Solo. But I think they could be pretty cool on the battlefield in Legion. Now, they've got a mixture because, it's like, 6 or 7, like, unique individuals. Some of them have melee weapons, some of them have ranged weapons. So I could see them being more of, like, a melee-type fighter, or just they're good at both, Maybe they're slow, but they do still have some range to them, maybe just range 1 to 2 or something like that. But, yeah, the Knights of Ren, I think that could be be a larger pack. It'd probably be an expensive squad, and maybe you can take 3 in there, or you could pay to get like the whole crew. I think there's 6 or 7. I don't remember. Let me know in the comments how many Knights of Ren there are in Rise of Skywalker, because I don't remember, because I haven't seen that movie in a while. The second specialist unit that I've come up with are the Jet Troopers, or the Rocket Troopers. We see them in Rise of Skywalker launching and one of the Pisana, I think, that desert planet on that chase. And then another inspiration for some of these units would be Star Wars Battlefront 2, the video game. You had all 3 trilogy eras in that game, and you had to have different classes, like an assault type, a heavy type, a support type, that kind of stuff. So they had different types of First Order troopers, and the Jet Trooper was Jet or Rocket Trooper, I forget what they call it. They want, obviously, they'd be flying. I'd say, comparable to like the Mandalorian Resistance or something like that. They wouldn't be as good as Clan Ren, but more generic, but fast, movement 3, that kind of stuff. Another specialist unit, which I think would be really fun, but also kind of already has the contemporary in the Galactic Empire, would be the elite Praetorian Guards. The red guards, Snoke's guards from The Last Jedi that also only fight for like a minute or 2. But I think we could see some cool stuff with them. I could see Snoke getting, like, you can have an extra set of them where they don't count against your specialist slot if you have Snoke as your commander. Kind of like how you've got synergy with Palpatine and the Imperial Guards. But the Praetorian Guards there, I think, they would all be melee, but maybe we can give them some little blasters or something like that too. Another specialist unit we could potentially add, again from the Resistance TV show, or the First Order Raiders. They're kind of like more advanced elite special forces for the First Order. I don't know too much about them, but they are an option out there that most people don't even know probably exist. And then the first mercenary unit that I decided to add in this would be the Guavian Death Gang. Now, I know you've got Contra Club as well that both show up in The Force Awakens, but honestly, I think the Guavian Death Gang have some of the coolest outfits with their, like cybernetic red and black outfits for their troops. But I don't know if it's in the comics or one of the books, they kind of side with the First Order, I think. I may be wrong. I read something about that when I was doing research for this. But I think the Guavian Death Gang could be a cool sequel trilogy mercenary group. I don't want to say they could retroactively add it to the Empire and the Rebellion too, because who knows how long they've been around. I don't think they've really established when they came about or not. But yeah, that would round out the specialist groups. So we've got 2 more, and these ones I had to reach a little more on, but there's not as much, and I think this is where some of the complaints of not having enough unit types could be seen. Would be the support and heavy classes. So for support, the only one I really thought of that I think could work, that I know for sure, would be the technical name is the 125Z Tread Speeder bike, but it's those little tread motorcycle things, speeder things they have in the Rise of Skywalker that the Jet Troopers launch off of. They fly now, that part. Obviously, that would compare to like maybe something like the Tauntauns, like a mix of the Tauntauns or speeder bikes. Obviously, would be the closest one, but I could see it maybe being a little heavier than the speeder bike. Maybe not as fast, but maybe have a couple more hit points or something like that. But yeah, the tread speeder bike obviously would make a lot of sense. That's really the only support unit I had. So we'll move on to heavy. I've got 2. The first one would be the First Order AT-ST, obviously. We see one like partially built, controlled by BB-8 and The Last Jedi, but Empire, First Order, AT-STs, walkers, yeah, that's a no-brainer. You could probably use the same stats as the regular AT-ST. Maybe you can give it a little more cost and a couple more hit points, because I feel like for most of the First Order, it's just kind of like the Empire on steroids. Like, it's the Empire, just a little bit more expensive, a little bit beefier. Like, their AT-ATs are bigger, their stormtroopers are a little more advanced, obviously, because it takes place later in the timeline. So I could see it maybe being a little bit beefed up AT-ST stats-wise, but I'm not a game designer. I'm just coming up with ideas here. And then the last heavy, which will be the last unit to round this out, would be the Light Infantry Utility Vehicle, or the First Order Snowspeeder. I think we see them in the Force Awakens, in that last planet where, Starkiller Base. We see some of those flying around, and I know they're in the Battlefront games as well. But they could be, I would compare them to like the X-34 land speeder that the Rebels have, or maybe like a Bark, something, one of those kind of, more of the mobile infantry platform. I forget, I don't pay much attention to the prequel stuff, I'll be honest. Something around a land speeder, be heavier than a speeder and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I could see that being like a transport as well. Not as much as like the big cargo van that a lot of people use to like have Wookiees and stuff run across the map, but I could definitely see that light infantry unit vehicle be able to bring some units across the map quicker, but also have a big gun on it. So I'd say close to the land speeder would probably be its closest thing. But yeah, those are my ideas. Just hypothetically, kind of having fun on what a First Order faction could look like for Star Wars Legion. Obviously, I know I'm missing a lot of stuff, so I would appreciate it. You guys comment down below what units I missed, or maybe what ideas you think, like how would Supreme Leader Kylo Ren look and act differently in the game than regular Kylo Ren, and like, would Snoke be more expensive or less expensive than the Empire? Yeah, I'd love to see and hear your guys' thoughts on that. I'll probably do a Resistance video as well too. But man, I love Legion. It's a lot of fun. I know we probably won't ever get the sequel trilogy factions. If we do, we'll probably just get a Battle Force with, you know, not even half the units that we've listed today. But I can dream. I can pretend. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It means a lot to us. I'm sure you hear that all the time on YouTube. Hit the like button too. The notification bell obviously lets you know when we make new videos. We try to, you know, have how to plays, let's plays, just discussion like this, hypothetical stuff. But yeah, just mainly appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. But yeah, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. That's the big thing. I like interacting with you guys and kind of hearing what the community's ideas were. I've seen, you know, several Reddit posts and Facebook posts before, like, hey, are we ever going to get a First Order or Resistance faction? You know, there's a bunch of people that jump on the train. No, we don't need that. It's just going to be the same thing, and the sequels suck, blah, blah, blah. But I think as time goes on, kind of like we saw with the prequel trilogy, I think there will be more of a demand for sequel-era stuff as the years go by. I don't think it'll be as big as what the demand was for, like, prequel trilogy stuff with the Clone Wars and stuff like that. But I think as time goes on, and younger fans get a little bit older, we'll probably have a little more heart for the idea of the First Order and the Resistance. Maybe we'll get, you know, more video games and books and comics and stuff like that that kind of round out the lore and, you know, make up for what the movies themselves were lacking. But yeah, I will stop talking. That's all I've got. Thanks for stopping by the channel, guys. Come back and see us soon. But until then, you guys go play some games.